So good morning, Philippines. Good morning, Tanzania. Good evening, USA. So we are back to the module number 2. So a couple things we're gonna go over today. So first, thank you for those who completed the evaluation. Those who did not or could not, you have about 14 minutes to go. And I think the session was very good. And that's why you guys were waiting for last 20 minutes, but we couldn't start early. We had to start on time. So we are here at 7:30 our time. And we have shared Google Drive with all of you. You should have access to the PowerPoint presentation that we completed, and also the books as we committed. And I have also posted number of articles there. So if you feel those articles are useful, download, use them, read them, share with your colleagues. They are for your use. And also, I have asked people to do action plan. Hopefully you are doing it. I don't need it today, but on Sunday sessions, I will tell you how we want you to share those action plan. So just hold on. You don't need to email me right now at this minute. So just hold on until today's action plan. And those action plan are going to be more important for you than the piece of certificate. Your certificate you can hang, this you cannot hang on your wall, but this is a really important document. And without further delay, I think I have not missed any other household items, and we're going to do the same way like we did on last session. And next one, I'll just give you a reminder. Next session is on your Monday morning at the same time, 7:30. You will get multiple reminder. If you have not joined WhatsApp group yet, please join. Please ask your colleague to give you the WhatsApp link and use the WhatsApp link. I know in WhatsApp also we have little less than 40 people so far. So I think that group will grow. So you can, and if you have questions, some important thing, please reach out to us. With that, Amy and Sakil, I'm turning it back to you. And we have a breakout rooms. I have to give you information. We had some very good feedback on breakout rooms, and thank Maricel. I'm not sure if she's online today. We have improvised the breakout rooms. So now we have 6 breakout rooms at this point. I'm going to share a list here on the chat room. So please use this document. I'm going to post it in next like 10 minutes. So let other people join in too. And then you can see which group you belong to. Most of the groups, I think they are very self-explanatory, you know it. But if you get confused, you can just refer to the document and see which group you belong to, and you will be joining those breakout rooms. Rooms are already being created, but I'm just going to share the names and names where we put them in which group. Okay. So with that, Sakil, I'm back to you and Amy, and hopefully Sakil, you have the PowerPoint and you can go ahead and share it. Okay. Thank you. And you are on mute, Sakil. You have to unmute.
Thank you so much. Good morning, good evening, wherever you are. Thank you so much for joining session 3. Although it is really session 2, we had the orientation session. So welcome again. And really appreciate you coming back. I am today your facilitator with Amy. Amy, are you there?
Good morning, everybody. Hi, everyone. Good morning from Tanzania. Still dark here.
Thank you, Amy. So today we're gonna have a good time. We have a lot of things to talk about. Of course, there is quite a bit of discussion also. At least 2 breakout discussion will be there. So I would like to start with a little bit of greetings. I see some greetings coming in from the chat board. Just want to make sure that everybody is healthy, everybody is okay, everybody is safe this morning in Philippines. So if you want to just say hello for a minute, you can on your microphone, or you can also do that on the chat board. I will be sharing in the meantime the screen. Can everybody see my screen?
Yes, Sakil, we can see, but you want to put this in the full screen mode?
Okay. Yes, of course. All right. I think now everybody should be able to see my screen. Today, the idea, and of course, we will talk, discuss a lot of things today, but really to think about the whole program and thinking about today our program is about evolving role of teachers in future learning. So it's all about you all. Although we have talked about very important issues yesterday, meaning the first session, but today there is a lot about the teachers. That's about all of you and all of our teachers in the country. This is going to be a very important session, and we will be discussing quite a bit of detail. And I want to show you the session expectation. And as you all know, Amy and I do not like to read the PowerPoints. So I would like you to take a minute, even 2 minutes, to really look at your session expectation for today. And then we can talk for a little bit just on the expectation and then move into the next part. So it's very important that while we look at this session expectation, we really look at the, in the whole spectrum or the holistic way of teacher's role. And the teacher's role, not only internal, but also external. There is a lot of things that we're going to be talking about in the upcoming session. So I want to, before I do that, Amy, do you want to say anything about the expectation of the session, or we move into kind of a little bit of reflection from our last session?
I would just like to say that I think the really important thing to keep in mind today is that we are now in the position of predicting the unpredictable. You remember in the last session, we talked about how the future is unpredictable, but we have to kind of predict particular scenarios, the possibilities. It's possible we'll head in this direction. It's possible we'll head in that direction, because we really are trying to kind of check our understanding of where teachers are today, where they may need to be in the future, and how that contributes to that necessary vision prototype that we're creating in our small teams. So I think we have to think creatively today. We have to think of all the different possibilities, but I want to caution also that with this kind of large discussion of what might it be like for teachers in the future, we've got to also keep some boundaries around our thinking and remember that we're preparing teachers in the most basic way to be ready for the future and to focus on your elements of basic education. I think along with the basic education, though, there are two critical things today: psychosocial support for students and this issue of nutrition and hygiene. These are in specific areas. This is the most specific content that we'll be talking about today as well. And then, of course, in our second section, we're going to be working on that future planning prototype, really reflecting on the focal concern and beginning to look at this. It's not systems mapping, actually. We've got an error on the screen. We will focus today on stakeholders. Back to you, Sakil.
Right. So we looked at the session expectation, but maybe this is a good time to reflect. And I know it's very early morning for all of you. I hope you got your chai, tea, and also you got your coffee or whatever you like in the morning. And this is going to be an interesting part because we want to hear from you. The reflection on the first session is very important, that we would like to hear from you about the last session's thinking and the discussion that we had about the future of learning. And what is future of learning? What was your understanding, and how did you see the previous session, and what did you learn one thing about future of learning? Why is it important to build and use strategic foresight, the visionary thinking in the different scenarios and situation in the future spaces? And then how can future learning planning support you in improving your educational setting? For example, in the classroom, in the workplace, in the department, wherever you are situated. So really two parts. One is we want to reflect a little bit on the future learning itself. And then we also want to hear about the process. We want to hear from you about focal concerns, goal you have set in your draft future planning prototype, because you are supposed to do a little bit of assignment homework. And if you have done a little bit of that, you can share some of that with us. How did you decide what you have decided as a focus and the goal of such importance to your group? What are the current situation that you suggest it should be your priority? So really kind of a reflection of our last session in the two areas that we have gone through quite in detail. And we loved the discussion on session one. It was extraordinarily provoking. It was a lot of food for thought for all of us. So really appreciate everybody to respond. So you can use both. You can use your microphone if you want to raise your hand, and then I can call names to speak. And the alternate also, you can post your thoughts on these two reflections on the chat board. Amy, do you like to add anything?
Yeah, let me add, Sakil, that on this second large reflection on the future vision planning process, it's very important that with each session, we do that offline homework to kind of refine and finalize and polish those draft pieces that we work on in small group. These are cumulative pieces. They add one onto another, and we can't really successfully move to the next step until we've done the first step. And our goal with this second piece is to really, by the end of session 6, have you fully prepared with a completed future visioning prototype. And that's a critical part of our goals for this work. So if you didn't have a chance to do your offline work, let's try very hard after the session today to coordinate with your team members and get that done for the next session.
Yeah, I appreciate that, Amy, because ultimately what we are trying to do, not through this learning process, only learning about the new concepts, new ideas and the process, but also by the end of this program in 6 weeks or so, we want to have certain kind of a draft version of the prototype in our thinking. So as Amy mentioned,
Sakil, we also want this group to be prepared to work with others on this same process. We are actually doing multiple levels of work here. We are really asking you to prepare yourselves to serve as models and leaders in phase 3 of the work as well.
Right, and you all are the leaders who joined the program in a leadership role. So, there are thousands of people in the education ministry, but you are the chosen group of leaders who has joined the program to be showing the leadership to the rest of the country, rest of the future of education. So with that, I will stop, and I would like you to raise your hand or share your thoughts on these two items that we mentioned, and then tell us your thinking. Anyone want to go first? I see Edgar Marshall. How are you this morning?
Hi. So Sakil, that's great to ask, and thank you very much for asking. I'm good this morning, and I would like to reflect on the second part here. First and foremost, I really appreciate the opportunity that you gave us as a team to sit down and once again assess or reassess, for that matter, our goals and where we are right now, or who we are as an organization. So those questions are very much appreciated by the team, because it grounds us to where we are and who we are as an organization, and identify once again if we are moving towards our goal, or are we busy with a lot of stuff that we are actually now moving away from the directions that's set by the Department of Education. So there are a multitude of programs and deliverables that we are busy with. But the thing that we really appreciate in the activity is that we once again get to identify what is important and our focus concern, and are we really still hitting that target, or are we still in that direction? So very much appreciated during that session. Thank you very much. That's all for me.
Thank you, Sakil, so can I respond briefly? I think that's a really important point. We all know, and we all have to acknowledge the kind of day-to-day tasks that people get bound up in. And we tend to run toward the next activity that we need to do. But it's very important, even if it's just 30 minutes, every couple of weeks, or 30 minutes a week, to touch base with colleagues and take a pause, take a breath, and focus on, are we on our track? Or have the daily activities and the things that come up that are unexpected, have they moved us off track? Because we always talk about this bit of unexpected activities, things that we have not predicted that come up, and they can really derail us in our work in terms of staying inside the boundaries of what our goal is, keeping focus on the long-term objective, and working on those daily tasks in a context where we're linked together in our thinking. We know what each other are doing, and we're all headed in the same direction. So I think that's a great first comment for us to keep in mind today.
Thank you, Amy. So anyone else want to go next? You can speak up, or you can share your chat board. I know in the morning it's tough to get into kind of reflection mode, but this is going to be important for all of us to reflect a little bit. Anyone else? All right, I see Felicia.
Yeah. Yes, good morning, everyone.
Good morning.
In this training, I was able to be a more futuristic head, but I need to time in taking steps, in understanding every detail in the planning stage wherein I need to comprehend and navigate the future planning process in such a way that this planning process will really help me to come up with a vision that is more tangible to the whole organization. And I know following the future planning process, these are the things needed in order for me to come up with a good and balanced programs and projects necessary in achieving the vision. Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Again, it's an excellent point from Felisa, and I want to encourage everybody to keep in mind that as we move from session 1 to session 6, we'll be going from the very global and conceptual down to the really practical. So by the end of our work, you'll have 4 very clear practical scenarios for possible futures that you need to be planning for. So I think it's a critical point. The learning happens over the 6 sessions, bit by bit, and the concrete plan and vision happens bit by bit as well.
Thank you so much. I will request now Bessie Agamata.
Yes. Hi. Good morning.
I'm good. Good morning. Go
good
ahead.
Morning. Thank you for the opportunity. The first thing that I have to say is that very important that instructional leaders, not only those who are in position, but also even the teachers should have that foresight, because it's very important nowadays to have that kind of futures thinking, considering that there is a massive change in relation to how we operate in school, and even coming up with the structural design of the school. I think it's very important to have that goal, that kind of needs assessment, so that we'll be able to structure the future environment. Because you know that phygital mode of learning or doing things, combination of physical and digital mode of teaching and delivering lessons, and even capacity building would require a lot of foresight and a lot of thinking. Plus, of course, we really have to consider now the trends, specifically in technology, because technology is actually our friend, right? If let's say it will be used properly, definitely it will guide us on how we deal things, particularly in the design, in planning, in decision, and then even in execution. So there's this influx of information. So it's a matter of, having that kind of foresight on how this one will be strategized and designed to come up with a very conducive, inclusive learning environment for our teachers and learners. Thank you.
Sakil, you there? Are you on mute?
Oh,
Amy,
I have to unmute. Sorry for that. So I was saying, basically, thank you for your comment. One thing I picked up from your comment was about the technology use, and technology is a friend only when you know how to use it. And I would also use the word appropriate technology. And what is appropriate in which circumstances and the context. So yes, there is this very important issues that you talked about. I really appreciate it. Also, you mentioned about inclusivity. I think that's a big issue around the world, also in Philippines, how we can make not only policy inclusive, but also implementation inclusive, because beautiful policies could be like a showpiece. And we have seen this in many, many countries, that there are wonderful policies, everybody worked hard, then having difficulty in the implementation part of the policy. So this is all futuristic thinking, as you mentioned. I think really appreciate your response. Yes.
Yeah. May I add something? Since there's this influx of information, I think instructional leaders and even teachers should also consider that intellectual honesty, because there are a lot of information in relation to how we design and conceptualize our teaching. But I think very important that we have to teach our learners and even teachers that intellectual honesty, because it's not easy, coming up with copyright infringement later on in the conduct of our, delivery of lessons. I think that's very important as well.
I love that word. I love that word that you used, honesty.
Yeah.
But we're gonna be talking a lot later on. Amy and I will be talking about ethics of future, because honesty, of course, but then the ethics of learning, the ethics of teaching, ethics of knowledge and information is a big piece of our work. So thank you for that. I will now
go to.
Thank you. I'll go to Maria Corazon Domlo. Please go ahead.
Thank you, Doctor. I'm in the field, but I am committed to still engage.
Thank you so much.
I am from the health group. I'm a medical doctor, and we're into policy formulation standard settings. I really appreciate this opportunity for the inclusion of the Bureau of Learner Support Services, particularly the School Health Division, in trying to be a part of the pool for changing mindsets, so that we can, on the same page, adapt to change. It needs a lot of change in mindset to be able to look into how we can align our efforts, the changes that needs to be adopted for us to reach our goals. We have been introduced to health informatics 5 years ago, and yes, there's really a need to not only to be capacitated on the technology thing. The use of technology is just one thing. The involvement of the users, changing their mindsets, as well as being able to be integrated in the system, that's another story. So this opportunity will allow us to refocus our efforts and put technology not only in the center of our efforts, but our priority focus, particularly on the forms, the tools, on healthcare, the referral system, and the other areas of school health. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Maria. I think that's
Shakil, can
extraordinary.
I?
Go ahead, Amy. Go ahead. Yes,
Yeah,
please.
I just want to add, I think it's really great also that health professionals are included in this work, because we can have the best prepared resources and environment. We can have the best prepared teachers. And if our children are not prepared, either due to nutritional deficiencies, health issues, or psychosocial, emotional health issues, we won't get where we need to go. So, you know, not only do we have the massive task of meeting curriculum goals, we have the massive task of making sure that every individual we work with is safe, well, and mentally prepared to do the work that needs to be done for their future.
Excellent. Thank you, Amy. Thank you so much. I also would like to add one other comment. I think it's important that what Mario was talking about, the health issues are also a lot to do with culture, right? Our culture, we have certain things in Asia and South Asia and East Asia. We need to be very cognizant about that. Maybe the things are there, but we still feel shy to talk about these things. There are issues that we may not be, so actively or aggressively trying to fix because there are cultural issues. And it's not ministry, Department of Ed, it's not a school, maybe it's even in the family and the community. So how do we get involved? How do we influence everything? We're going to be talking about all of this today. So really appreciate the detailed comments. I see one other hand, Rhoda Reason.
Yes, good morning, Sir Suman, Sir Shakil, Ma'am Amy, and everyone. I am Rhoda from Region 3. I just came from Baguio City this 4 a.m. just so I could attend this session with all of you because the internet connection in teachers camp is intermittent. And so as I reflect on our first session, I am bothered by our current situation here in the Philippines, and not only here in the Philippines, but all over the world, when our schools closed for almost 2 years. And despite the many modalities that are introduced by our schools during the pandemic, still there are a lot of learning that are lost. So in our competencies alone, it was reduced to almost 40%. And so I am thinking about how to recover these learning losses by the use or coupled with how are we going to use the available technology so that these learning losses can be recovered. So that's on top of my mind. How are we going to recover the learning losses and at the same time use the available technology today to not only recover the learning losses, but to advance or to have a more futuristic kind of learning, which are being enjoyed by by students in more advanced countries.
Thank you so much, Rhoda. Amy, do you have any comment?
I agree. It's a huge concern. I also think Rhoda's point, you know, when and if we completely recover from this COVID-19 crisis, it's not the only crisis that's going to come. And as I mentioned in the last session, educators in the Philippines understand this. You know, we see on our international news different crises coming for your part of the world and particularly for your country from an environmental point of view. So I think, you know, it's odd to say that COVID-19 is an opportunity, but it is an opportunity for us to learn how to respond to crises differently in the future, so that those losses, you know, when you're talking about down to 40%, that's really, that just made me cringe. I'm sitting here alone in my house, but I just physically cringed when I heard her say down to 40%, because that kind of loss can be devastating for children, we know. I think also one thing to keep in mind and think about is how do we reprioritize in a crisis? What are those core fundamentals? And we had a lot of people in the last session really put an emphasis on discussion of basic education. And I think if we keep our focus there, you know, some loss is going to happen in a crisis. But if we can maintain that focus on basic education and kind of pare it down to the essentials, multiple modes of reaching children, multiple environments for learning, and the bare basic essentials, and kind of reset our goals. So if we are in normal function, we might have this certain set of expectations. If we're in crisis function, we reset immediately into a different set of expectations to figure out for ourselves, what does success mean in a reframed situation?
Thank you, Amy. Thank you. That's great. I am going to read one or two comments from the chat board. So Mary Jane Feliciano saying, we in DEPED is working on a goal, and we have different roles to play in each level of governance, but we have a shared responsibility to deliver the goal. We need to be ready also in different scenarios that will come on our way to continue access to quality basic education scenarios. So that's great. Thank you. Thank you. Absolutely agree with you. This is great. I now will go to Innocencia.
Yes, good morning, everyone. I am
good morning.
From DepEd Caloocan. So my sharing is, of course, I gained much knowledge during our first session, and I am very thankful for that. So in my point of view as a teacher, now is the time for us to be more adaptable and flexible, carrying out these what we call lessons about futures learning. So we must be more resilient and of course accept the innovations, the changes that we are about to learn in this course. So being the teacher and dealing directly with the children, we have to be more positive in carrying out this futuristic plan in the development and enhancing the literacy and numeracy of our learners. So these futures planning or futures learning will serve as our guide in carrying out the DepEd mission and vision. And of course, we need the support of our DepEd departments and personnel to carry out all this plan. So thank you and good morning.
Thank you so much.
I think that's a great place to close up our reflection, hearing the voice of the teacher as we're moving into focusing on teachers today.
Excellent. Thank you. Thank you, Amy. So I'm going to be handing over to Amy now. We want to go into our real section, section 1, which is our deepening understanding of future learning, which we did. We will be talking about the first section starting. Amy, go ahead. Vision of future learning for the teachers.
Okay, officially, good morning, everybody, and thank you for being with us today. As you'll recall from our orientation, we are structuring these sessions into 2 sections each morning, focusing on new content and new thinking in the first section, and focusing on new planning in the second section. So in section 1 today, where we're deepening our understanding of futures learning, you can go to the next, oh, you're on the next slide, Sakil, thank you. We're really focusing on future teachers today. So I want you to put your mindset to the big question of what does the future look like for teachers. I also want to orient you to the figure that's on the screen, the learning ecosystem that supports learning spaces. This comes from DepEd. I absolutely love this graphic in terms of how it focuses on children, but it also kind of opens up our thinking about what future processes might look like, what future learning spaces might look like, because this all goes to what future teachers need to be prepared to do. But of course, we can't really get to the needs of our future teachers and the skills of our future teachers until we start to look at what they currently are doing and what the needs of children are and what the needs of children might be in the future. So we'll be coming back to this graphic throughout section 1, but right now, Sakil, can you move to the next screen? Because we have some questions that we need to ask. Next screen, Sakil. Thank you. So one of the things we need to really look at is, what do teachers normally do? Now, we're in a new normal, but teachers continue to maintain the same kinds of activities through different modalities of delivery. So one of the things we know teachers normally do is that they demonstrate. They demonstrate new skills, they demonstrate new processes, globally for large groups of students with their classroom, and even in small groups or for individuals who need specific kinds of support. We also know that they are constantly asking questions. For any of us who are involved a lot in teacher professional development, this issue of questioning and how do we question is critical. How we question children in order to spark connections and thinking in their brains, but how we also question in order to gain more information about student thinking, about gaps in student understanding or skills, and how do we move them forward. I've included the term lecture here, and it's not usually something I talk about, but internationally, we really are looking at kind of a different way of thinking about this issue of lecture. Lecture being direct delivery of information. So when teachers are giving direct instruction, direct information, this is where I use the term lecture. So teachers may be telling students a new piece of information. They may be providing new content. And even in our basic education focus, which focuses primarily on skills, there is also content that needs to be delivered. And even for young learners, there is content that needs to be delivered. So when we look at demonstrate, question, and lecture, we're really looking at instructional modalities, how to pedagogy, how to deliver the teaching and the instruction that happens in the classroom. And then on the next 3 bullets, we're talking about the practical things that teachers do. So take a look at those 3 briefly. Teachers assign things for students to do in the classroom. They'll monitor that. That's part of management. They also assess or mark or grade the things that students do. This issue of management goes to 2 things. It goes to managing the learners and the process. It also goes to managing the content in the classroom. Now, this is just the beginning of a list, and I'd like for the group now, through the use of the chat board, to please add on other things to this list of what teachers normally do.
So please use your chat board to add any other items that you want to add. So Amy, responses are coming, and I'm going to read them to you.
I'm seeing them. I'm seeing them actually.
Okay, great.
Yeah.
Great.
So this issue of monitoring progress, I think monitoring progress really hits several of the bullets that we've got here. When we question, we're monitoring progress. When we mark and grade, and even when we manage processes in the classroom. I also really loved the comment of research, because that's a critical thing. You know, when we might talk about formal research, there's a minimal number of teachers who are in positions to conduct formal research in their classroom. But I would suggest that all teachers are almost always conducting research. Because when I put information out into a room full of people and I see what comes back, that's action research. So I'm constantly testing what's happening. I also love the point about engaging and motivating, and the issue of including parents and engaging parents as well. So let's continue to see the comments coming in. And Sakil, any comment and response you'd like to make to those as well?
I'm still reading them. There are a lot of good stuff. I think the values formation of the learners, coordinate with parents. This is also goes back to the discussion of this is not one person's responsibility. This is a shared responsibility for making sure the learning outcome happens that we are intending for the learners. So really appreciate that. I think this is a good one. I really appreciate this one, Marianne, saying empower students to take ownership of their learning. I think this also is connected with self-reliance, talks about, you know, the independent thinking, democratic thinking, also critical thinking for young learners, so that they can take ownership of their you know, identification of issues, and also the critical reasoning for the things they are learning. So this is also brings me to one other discussion, Amy. You and I always talk about this, which is, you know, the old issue that we all dealt with around the world is moving from rote learning to critical thinking, right?
Yes. Yeah, and actually, I love what's coming in, because I intentionally focused this screen on the practical tasks that teachers do. And I love seeing that participants are really looking at and adding to the discussion the conceptual purposes, the purposes for these practical tasks. So when we talk about management, and we're looking at the need for psychosocial support, the need for nurturing, we have got to use a whole child approach to our management, and an inclusive approach to our management as well. Right. Inclusive of not just all students, but also families and other members of the community that have a stake in the work that happens in our classroom. More things, Sakil?
Yeah, I think this is one that is also quite important. Make intervention materials to struggling learners. I think the material piece, a lot of time we don't talk about a whole lot, but we are very cognizant of the issue of learning materials. We are also quite sensitive about the supply chain of materials, because not every children gets the book that they are supposed to get, the material they need to learn because of resources scarcity. So this is also very important, but also materials that are inclusive. Is it ready for, you know, the children with special needs or disabilities, but also maybe the struggling learners. So it's really important issue that I appreciate. I also see that there is a demand of the 21st century, of course, and community as partners in nurturing their education. This is again the whole of school, whole of student approach that we need to think about in the process. So, Amy?
Yeah, I'm looking at the responses and thinking, how in the world would we ever have included all of these in a PowerPoint? And we must think of teachers as Superman and Superwoman. This is what's coming to my mind at this point. Right. It's a massive responsibility, and I love that the group here understands their connection to that responsibility of that individual teacher, and the importance of the work that's going to be happening, is happening, and will continue to happen. So I think we might be ready to move to the next slide, because really just brainstorming what teachers normally do. takes us almost naturally to children. And if we think about what do teachers normally do now versus what they might normally do in a future setting that we can't predict, but we have to be able to kind of put the maybes on, the possibilities and the probabilities. So let's shift to the next screen, Sakil.
Yes.
What does the future ask us? The future has lots of questions for us, but we're going to focus on 3 core ones today. What will children be learning in the future? Where will they be learning in the future? And how will they be learning in the future? So we're talking about content, environment, and learning modality. And these are the things where we have to really begin to make some probability or possibility predictions. And so I want us to focus on those first 3. So what will children be learning in the future? You'll recall from last session that we talked a bit about the content to be known in the world multiplying exponentially on a daily basis. And we cannot and we should not attempt to merge every bit of content to be known in the world into our curriculum, our children's curriculum. So what will they be learning in the future? Instead of focusing on the idea of massive blocks of information, maybe they will be learning how to access information, how to sort information, how to select key information that's important for them to develop understanding. Other things, what do you think, what will children be learning in the future? I'd like to see either raised hands. I would love to invite people to talk, or you can continue to use the chat box. What will children be learning in the future? This is about the content. And let's stay focused at this point on the primary or elementary level to kind of contain the conversation.
Yeah, this is gonna be a very interesting conversation, because what I'm thinking is that the future, as Amy was saying, has so many unknown. But then each of these question would help us to think about the actual learning outcome that we are looking for. Also, where the learning space and the context. How it could include the pedagogy and everything else.
And on this first question, Sakil, I really want people to focus on what we traditionally think of as curriculum.
Right.
Okay. So the first question is really about how might our curriculum be different in the future?
Sure.
How might it be different? So I would really love to hear some responses. So let's frame that question multiple ways. What will children be learning in the future? And what might the curriculum look like in the future? Let's stay focused there. Responses from the group?
Yeah, and chat board, or you want to speak, you are welcome also. Anyone? All right, Rhoda, go ahead.
Thank you so much. In the future, I would be looking into children learning some smart technology, artificial intelligence, robotics, genetics, and many other things. Now, where will children be learning in the future? Anywhere. I think if we will be able to create learning spaces for our children in such a way that they will be the learning should be accessible in everywhere, it would be better because of the occurrence of the COVID nowadays, and it is sometimes it is not advisable for our children to go to school. So I think our children will be able to learn anywhere.
Right. Thank you so much.
I just love, as soon as Rote said, where will they be learning anywhere? I immediately got a vision in my mind of a classroom that had some students at tables, some students in desks, and some students on screen.
Right.
In terms of learning anywhere. And for me, this idea of learning anywhere really pushes on the question of what they should be learning.
Right.
And also on the modalities, how they should be learning. So other comments from the group?
Yeah, there are some coming on the chat board. I think you can see, but I want to ask one other person. Mary Ann, you want to go ahead? Mary Ann, can you hear me?
Yes, good morning, everyone.
How are you?
I'm very excited on the learnings that we will be having this morning. My take about what the learning in the future will be is that the proper mindset. Perhaps this will be the key so that the children will be successful and happy on the ecosystem that we will be preparing in the future. Secondly is that they will be able to develop discernment on facts checking, because everything is now in the internet. The massive information is at the tips of their finger. If we will be able to let them learn on how to decide whether the facts that they are seeing and reading and everything that they are researching on where are coming from good sources, perhaps it will enable them to really maximize the use of the internet. Where will the children be learning in the future? I think it will be available everywhere, on the areas where technologies are available and also on the areas where nearly are not accessed yet by technology. Perhaps we must also be able to touch those far-flung areas where technologies are not yet introduced. That's all. Thank you. Good morning.
Thank you so much.
Can I respond to that, Sakil? I think it's a critical point. Point that particularly in countries that are developing, and it just immediately I get a vision of what happens here in my own country. We have the city of Dar es Salaam. It's a massive modern city. We have students learning in classrooms using whiteboards, power in the classroom every day, children with tablets and laptops. And then we have my village school, which has no resources, none, zero, no power, no resources. So I think we also have to, as educators and educational leaders, we have to be flexible in our thinking about what the future learning space should look like for everyone. It's going to be looking different for different learners. So each teacher has to be able to understand their own context, maximize their own contextual capacity. What can we do in the environment that we're in? How do we access the things that we need? And the delivery methods. Sakil and I work a lot on proposal development, on designing large-scale programs, long-term programs, working with ministries of education. And we constantly have to ask the question and have the conversation, what is the value of including funding for technology in this proposal? Because in some contexts, we can, dump millions of dollars into technology that can't be used because there's no electricity or no internet connection. So I think we have to really always consider that the future learning environment, specifically around this use of access to technology and use of technology, has to continue to be contextual while we work toward making things more accessible to all children. So I want to ask the group now to focus on question 3 here, because we are headed in the direction of teachers. And this, how will children be learning in the future, really gets to the issue of pedagogy, and it gets to the issue of the methods of delivering instruction. So we've talked about what will they be learning in the future, some of the traditional content, but also how to access information will be important, how to filter information, where will children be learning. I absolutely love the concept of just about anywhere and everywhere is where they will be learning. But let's go now to this question of how will they be learning in the future? The modalities of instruction, the modalities of learning. My first thinking on this is that we will be using more modalities than we can possibly imagine, even at this point. I think we will hang on to some of our traditional modalities of instruction, our traditional pedagogical approaches. I think we'll have to adapt some of those. And then I anticipate that new approaches will be coming at us. And as someone said in the prior session on Tuesday, new modalities coming to teachers, new approaches coming to teachers so fast that by the time they master them, they will be outdated and something new is coming along. So I'd like to hear the thinking from the group on how will children be learning in the future. The pedagogical approaches that teachers will probably need to be able to bring.
So there was a hands up from the beginning. Samuel Sullivan, I don't know if you want to respond to this new question about children's learning.
Yeah, good morning to everyone. I'm reflecting on item number 3 because what matters on my own opinion is the socioeconomic situation of a certain family. Say a family can be something like this. There's only one child. There are 2 children, 3 children, 4 children in a certain household. And then, of course, the lifestyles of the family, we consider the financial situation of the family, the available resources of the family, and of course, the kind of support that is given by the school, by the government. But what I'm thinking is the diversity of learning modalities, and then the different pedagogical approaches. For example, in richer families, of course, they can afford the internet, something like that, and therefore they may be using smartphones and then high internet connectivity, and therefore through synchronous modalities, then they can interact with their teachers and parents as well. Whereas on the other extreme end, for families, say with 3 or more children in the household, and then they are poor families, then probably the kind of learning modality there would be the use of learning modules, printed learning modules, TV, sorry, not really TV, but maybe radio could be very helpful. And that they are, we look at them as potential learners for in-person learning. Yes, we also need to focus our attention on how we can reach out to poor learners and what pedagogical strategies can be more applicable to them so that they will also achieve the learning standards. Thank you very much.
So when we think about this idea of learners, of learners with different kinds of support systems, for me, it takes me back to the graphic that says, you know, the future is not set in stone, and the individual choices we make determine what happens. So for me, it looks like a large map of possibilities for children. So how do we, the question becomes then, how do we as educational leaders find the right pathway for every child? How do we know where they are? How do we understand what their context is and give them and give their families options for how to access learning? That's the first step, how to get them into the right modality for their needs and for their context. But then also, how do we prepare our teachers to be as supportive in online learning as they are in face-to-face, or to be as supportive in face-to-face learning as they are via distance learning. So it just, again, expands, but it also alters the kinds of institutional processes that we need to develop as a Department of Education and as a government agency. But it also expands and multiplies and alters what it is we should be expecting teachers to know and be able to do in terms of working with children successfully, regardless of modality, regardless of context, and regardless of situation. It's a huge challenge because, as with a lot of other developing countries, you've noted there are people who have full access, and then there are people who have no access. And then we have everything in between. So I think that's a critical point that the speaker has made. Anything else, Sakil, coming from the group?
Yeah, there are a lot of comments on the chat board, so I want to read one or two. There are quite a few interesting ones. I see one from Tana. Diverse learners can learn through combination of traditional and new trend tech-based depending on the situation. Available resources with the implementation of adaptable curriculum. Thank you for that. And students will become more and more involved in informing their curricula. Therefore, students' ownership takes place or will happen. You will need to maintain a curriculum that is contemporary, up-to-date, and useful, and also realistic. There is one, we can utilize varied modalities based on the learner's need, where they are and what they are capable of. With the new pedagogies, teachers and pupils can create new learning, new skills in the learning process. It will teach them also to become more independent in the future. Agreed.
Good.
All agreed.
Yeah. That's great. So Sakil, I'm watching our balance of time, and also just in terms of thinking about what we've covered and discussed so far, I'd like for you to take us, if you would, to the next screen, screen 8.
Yes. We are on the ecosystem.
So in terms of DepEd's thinking about this futures planning, this is a core graphic that's been developed. And I want you just to take a few minutes. You may be very familiar with this, or it may be the first time that you're seeing it. You know, we have a lot of beautiful graphics that accompany our work, but we don't always take the time to dig down into it and take a look at what it's trying to tell us. So I want you to think about the discussions that you've just had at the beginning of this section on teachers. And then I want you to look at this graphic and just see how they link together. Is your thinking and our joint thinking consistent with this graphic representation of how to think about the futures of education? So take just a couple of minutes. I'm going to go silent. I'm not gone. I'm just giving you time. So you can give me a thumbs up. You can give me a thumbs down in the chat box. You can also raise your hand if this piques other comments in terms of what the future asks us about what children should learn, how they should learn, and where they should learn. Anything coming on the chat box, Sakil? I'm looking for people to test their own thinking. Is our thinking and our discussion about future for children, is it consistent with this graphic?
Yeah, I'm still, I have not seen any hand raised or no comments yet.
Bessie says yes. And Marianne. Anything we've missed in our discussion that comes out of this graphic that piques your interest in kind of adding to the collective vision really that we're working to develop today? As you look and you chat, over to the left on the graphic, I see the term agency, to develop in Filipino learners agency. I think that that's really critical. And I was going to mention that with the last comment that came on the prior screen, that issue of motivation for independent learning, motivation for students to seek out what it is they need to know. Sometimes we also call this self-efficacy, the concept that as a learner, I have the support network I need and the skills that I need to go after what it is I need to know in order to move myself forward. Do I have my own vision for my learning, my own goals in terms of productive citizenship and being ready for work? Am I strong inside myself? Am I flourishing as we move to the right in order to develop agency in my own learning? Any comments on that or other things, Sakil, you're seeing in the chat?
Yes, I'm still looking. I think there is one, we need to recalibrate the curriculum. I think you talked about this a little bit. Also, there was a long one. I'm going to read a little bit of it on how learners learn in the future. As we ride the wave of digital era, we have to adapt and embrace change. The reality sometimes is that there are areas that are not technologically ready and some are very advanced, extremes as we say, but we have to think of ways to create boundless strategies in giving our best to our learners. Anyone want to speak?
As you look at that, Sakil, I think this issue of boundless strategies, I would agree, but I don't want to have us kind of move out into a universal space for pedagogical approach. I think, again, we want to ground ourselves in what do we know how to do and how do we adapt what we know how to do as educators into multiple environments and using multiple different kinds of resources and technology. So I would encourage us to think about it as adaptation of the skills that we currently have, as opposed to an unending kind of list of approaches. This also begs the question for me about the agency of teachers, about the not only the ability, but the space for teachers to be able to make their own decisions. You know, we work in a lot of contexts where curriculum is very rigid and pedagogical approaches can be also very rigid. And this is an early attempt to make sure every child's getting the similar education, make sure every teacher is doing similar kinds of things. And this is a great place to start. But how do we move our teachers to the place where we know we can trust them to make different kinds of decisions, to move off that narrow pathway and into a space where we have not kind of okayed the choices that they're making. We're not monitoring every single teacher on a daily basis to make sure they're what we call in the US not gone off the range, meaning that, you know, we don't have a teacher way out in left field doing things that are not the best for children. So how do we monitor teachers differently so that we can know that we're comfortable and can trust what it is they're doing? How do we open the space inside government policy and government regulations for them to have room to make the individual decisions we know they need to make. How do we trust them to do that? But also keep enough boundaries that we're still sure that every child's getting basically the same kind of basic education. Any comments from the group on this issue of space for teachers for decision making? Sakil, any comments from you on this idea of balancing consistency, system structures, policy with space for teachers to move in different directions? You know, this is a big issue of mine as a former classroom teacher, but also as a policymaker and working with departments of education. We struggle with this all the time.
Right. No, I think I was, in the beginning, I think I was talking about this issue of policy to practice, right? And there could be amazing policies. And you talked about this. I think many of our colleagues talked about this. Policy remains to be, you know, a policy, but then when we try to implement it, there comes the reality where rubber hits the road. And the issue of implementation need to be very well planned. Even though we are talking about future, we keep thinking about how policy get into practice and the action plans and then reflection processes and the integration among all the planning, because everybody's planning their own things, but it all has to also come together. Now, one other issue remains that sometimes we don't talk about it enough because this is not well practiced, which is practice to research. So it's a circular process, sometimes research to practice, but also practice to research. One other issue that I also want to bring to the attention, that especially the space for teachers to think differently, or, you know, for the futuristic thinking, is about, you know, a lot of academic research that we see are, you know, of course relevant. They are from the space, but then they are done in a more small scale or you know, in a specific circumstances. But when we try to scale up to the national scale, you know, regional scale, or hundreds and thousands of learners, there is a bigger, you know, different story, because there is a lot of different resources and influencing an agency that is necessary for doing scale up program. Now, sometimes we also confuse, you know, is 200 big enough? 500 schools big enough? Do we call it a national scale, you know, or is it a pilot? In my mind, even if you're doing 900 schools, it could be still a pilot. Now, the question is not about piloting, you know, the number of schools and learners, but also thinking about how you can take it to all learners. And not only the numbers, but also, is it now sustainable for the future? You have done something and that could be taken you know, over the school system, the teachers, and to do those things. So these are just some comments as I look at these graphics. It does make really good sense, but then the integration of all of this, these are not silos or not independent bodies. They are all together.
Right. Right. Well, and for me, as I continue to kind of move toward this idea of the re-envisioning of the teacher, that for me is a big part of it. You know, how do we have the teacher have more agency as well as students? Because you can't develop students with agency, with motivation, with the skills that they need to go after the learning that they need, if we don't have teachers with the same kind of set of skills and perspectives. So thank you. Good. It's just, that's always a constant question. The balancing act between all for everyone and adaptation for individuals. Can you move us, Sakil, to screen 9? Because we're really going to go right at the teacher now at this point.
Right.
Now that we have kind of explored some things that might be different for the learner. As I noted, we can't really get at what might be different for the teacher until we think about what might be different from the learner. But let's focus in now on the teacher. So let's think to the future. What does the future teacher look like? Who are they? What do they need to know? What's the knowledge that they need to have? What will change for them? What will not change for them? And then this issue of skills. I want us to think about current knowledge, generalizing, of course, because we don't know every individual teacher deeply. But what do teachers generally know now? And what will they need to know in the future? What kinds of skills do teachers currently have that they're going to continue to need to have and use in the future? But then what kinds of new skills are they going to need? So we're looking at knowledge. What do they know? What will they need to know? Skills. What can they do? What will they need to be able to do? And because we're talking about meeting the needs of individual human beings, how will teachers particularly be able to support the emotional and health needs of children who could potentially be in difficult circumstances in the future? Because we can have predictions that things will improve for all learners in the future. But we also know that we're facing unknowns and we're facing some problems, some global problems that are going to affect all of us. So we have to be prepared for children learning and living in difficult circumstances. So I want just to take a couple of minutes to see hands raised for anyone to respond to any of these prompting questions before we go into small group.
Anyone want to speak?
Mga anak, tingin po kayo, mga anak. Please, tingin po dito. Huwag niyong gaganito na kasi madulas to, madudumihan ang diploma niyo. Pag ganito lang po ang hawak.
There we go. There we go. Okay, you know what, Sakil? I think I'd like to go ahead and put people into small group. Take just another moment, please, to take a look at these questions. These are the questions that are going to guide your small group work today. Okay, you and I think, have talked enough this morning. Let's throw it over to small group. So we're looking at what do teachers need to know? What skills do they need to have? How will things change for them? And then the big question today is, how do they meet those needs of all children, those needs to be healthy of mind and body, those needs to be prepared, even if we bring good environments, multiple environments, great access and good teaching. How do we take care of those children, and what's the role of the teacher in taking care of those children? Can you slide us please to the next screen so we can give the team task?
Yeah.
Okay, so we're going to go into small group. I want you to take just a moment to read this. So
Sakil,
talk in your group.
Okay.
Talk in your group when you go into small group rooms. Talk about what the future teacher needs to know, knowledge, and needs to be able to do, skills. And then think about if you were observing a future teacher. I really want you to ground it, almost like a video playing in your mind, some visual images. What would it look like if you're observing a future teacher in the classroom? And I want to challenge my own issue of classroom. What does classroom mean? It could mean lots of different things. And then as a group, I want you to create a shared written description of a future teacher and how he or she might function in the classroom. So get your visual image that you discuss onto paper. And then I need 3 bullet points about something new teachers must either know or know how to do. So discussion, brainstorming the vision of future teachers, writing, describing the future teacher, and then 3 bullet points. Don't go too broad, just 3. 3 critical things teachers are going to need to know and be able to do that are new in the future. I'm going to give you 15 minutes. Do not panic, please. You're not expected to have a completed piece of work. Simply draft, and then you will work together to complete that offline today. So Suman, if you can let's go ahead and put 17 minutes on the timer so that we give people a couple of minutes to get into group. When we come back, we will share. I need you to have a representative to share, and then we'll take a short break.
So everyone, I have created a room, so you can go to those rooms, pick your appropriate room, go to those rooms for your breakout sessions. Thank you.
Thank you, Suman.
Have started a timer?
Sorry, Sir Suman, but I haven't seen the breakout rooms.
Is everyone in the breakout room?
Not yet.
Not yet. People need to choose their own breakout rooms because you should be able to see different regions and you need to join your own region. You can scroll down in the breakout room list and join, click the join button.
Please add me to DepEd Central Office team. I don't belong to any group.
There is a central team, central office, DepEd Central Office.
But I am not there.
You are not there.
Yeah, I can see my name. Let me see how did I. Yeah, it's DepEd. Yeah, I think I have to place CO. DepEd CO.
Okay.
So that you will be able to place me there.
Yeah, DepEd CO. Okay.
Yeah, DepEd CO. Okay, that's DepEd CO. Okay, please.
So who needs to move to DepEd CO? Can you tell me the name so I can see the name?
Wonderful discussion. So, you know, as usual, we of course would like to hear your thoughts. And of course, you see the screen, the way we want to have the discussion now is to hear from each group, you know, about this, you know, description of the future teacher, or the new skills, understanding of the future teacher we'll need to have, common parts of our descriptions, common areas of new skills that you come up with, and how does the larger professional development community address these needs to prepare teachers pre-service, in-service, or anything else that, that we might have missed. So go ahead, I'm gonna call in each of the team now, and one person can represent the team and respond. Amy, you wanted to add something?
Yeah, and just teams, if you will simply read how far you've gotten with your description. Just read your description to us, and then we'll share team to team, and then we'll have a small discussion before break.
Thank you. So I will call DepEd NCR team. You want to go first? Who is speaking from NCR team?
Hello, sir. Good morning.
Good morning. Go ahead.
Okay. This is Dr. Macarubo from the National Capital Region. Good morning once again. This is the collaborative effort of our region. So to answer question number one, talking about what the future teachers must know and able to do, okay? So teachers should be provided with opportunities to be creative, to be risk-taker, to be innovative because they know how best their learners learn. The teaching learning process consists important component, student, teacher, and curriculum. In the process of the curriculum construction, evaluation, and feedbacks are an important aspect to redesign the curriculum. So teachers' responsibility is not only to transfer the knowledge to the student, but to provide them opportunities to construct their own knowledge. For the next one, future teachers use technology to help all students develop basic technological skills that will be required throughout all academic levels, as well as the personal and professional world. So the future teachers, from the view, be able to be resilient and be more innovative in providing quality learning to learners, applying not only the IQ but EQ in dealing with learners. Teachers must be able to adopt fast emerging technologies and teaching strategies. So we need to recalibrate the curriculum to be relevant and aligned to the needs and different home environment our learners experience. So the future teacher should know and address the psychosocial and nutritional needs of the learners so that the use of innovative strategies and teaching concepts will be absorbed and accommodated by the learners. For the view of the principal, global competent teachers, digital teachers, project-based oriented teachers, and they must be adaptive to the change of time, give best in adapting to change, sensitive to the emotional needs of the students, and of course, the teachers must be technology savvy, must show a calibrated value system to support the needs of the learners based on the different home learning, well-equipped with the knowledge, committed, well-versed with technological applications. And for the last, future teachers are facilitators of learning, well-equipped learning technology to provide the students with a better learning experience. Practice high-flex mode of learning. Teachers must provide learning list for the student, e-teacher, novelty in tradition, research, and time, and collaboration zone, interactive classroom, and e-teacher. That's all. Thank you very much, sir.
Thank you so much. Excellent, excellent. Amy, I don't know if you want to give any feedback or we want to continue to hear.
Nope, let's continue.
All right. So next I'm going to Region 4A, DepEd Region 4A.
Good morning, everyone. Am I being heard po?
Can you come close to your microphone?
Yes, sir.
All right, go ahead, please. Thank you.
Say from STO Tanawan City. So this is the result of our discussion a while ago. So it is mentioned a while ago that we must make our pupils learn how to access, how to sort, how to select info that will be useful and applicable for their life. And in order to have or to attain this, so we must have the teachers must be skillful from the side of a school head like me. So I am observing the different techniques and the different methods used by the teachers. And for us, the future teachers in the future learning spaces must be more skillful, particularly in a technical base. And teachers must be open to changes. They must know the technical know-how on how to run these future learning spaces. And what are the common the future teachers need to have in the future? So they must have the skills and technical know-how. So they must adapt, or they must be adaptable to the environment, and they must produce digitally literate learners. As to well, they must also be digitally literate teachers. So for them, so for the teachers, what are the common areas or new skills that may be acquired by the teachers? So they must have the emotional quotient. So not only the intelligence, but emotional, or the heart must be always there, the heart for the learners. They must be resilient, the resiliency to the rapid and fast changes in the learning environment, that they must be adaptable, or they must show adaptability to changes, and they must be have a um, social and emotional skills. Okay, to attain this, the need for the development of the teachers, or for the improvement of the teachers in the future, so the division or the DepEd should provide trainings, should capacitate the teachers for them to be more skillful, and for them to do their job, and to produce quality learners in the future. That's all for Region 4A. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Region 4. Thank you. That's excellent. So next, I'm going to request DepEd Region 4B. Anyone from Region 4B? I don't hear anyone from Region 4B.
We'll come back to them, Sakil. You can go ahead
Sure.
and move to the next group.
Sure. And next is Region 2. Region 2.
Okay, good morning, everyone. Good morning, Paul. Good morning, everyone. I am representing Region 2. This is now the work of Region 2, our answers to this small group task. Okay, for number 1, okay, about the future teacher. Future teachers are flexible in applying different modalities. They're also technology experts, and they are future transformer of values through learners, and flexible, effective in teaching. Okay. In letter B, talking about the future teacher will look like if they are observing him in the classroom. Okay. Future teacher should be upskilled, resilient, and also receptive. And in number 2, our answer is teachers should be implementer of the different policies in the Department of Education. And there are also learner-centered. Talking with learner-centered, there should be adopting the inclusivity of all the learners. Okay? And they are also creating innovative learner holding to. And we have in number 3, our answer in number 3 is teachers must have the adaptability in the environment of the new way of cascading learning. And there are also technologically driven skills, executing the different pedagogies in meeting the success of the different competencies in providing the 21st century learners. And they are also equipped with systematic and well-organized way in executing daily tasks, readily to adapt different learning situations and addressing different learning styles. Okay, so that's all for Region 2, sir. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Vilma. Thank you so much for representing your region. So thank you. And next we are going to Central Office, DepEd Central Office.
Hello po, good morning. May comments through. Ayan, all right. So for the DepEd Central Office, we actually started the conversation on what the teachers should not be doing. So currently, teachers have a lot of things aside from from teaching, no? But the group agreed the teacher should be focusing on teaching.
Can I ask you, hold on 1 second. Are you you are Chris?
Yes, Pa. Yes.
Yes, there is another person. There is a background noise. I'm going to turn it off. 1 second.
Next
fiscal. All right. Go ahead. Go ahead, Chris.
All right, so as I mentioned, we started the conversation on what the teacher should not be doing. So teachers should be focusing on teaching and all other teaching related tasks. From there, so that teachers will be given generous amount of time in better understanding the curriculum, because it's very important that they know how to navigate the curriculum, how it should be delivered. So that teachers will be able to meet where the learners are. So we also discuss about how important it is that teachers are empowered to decide what's needed and important for their students in the classroom or in any other learning spaces. Specifically, the group actually emphasized the importance of having the skills to look at the learners based on holistic approach, not just be able to assess the learning performance of learners, but the skills to look at the socio-emotional conditions of learners, so that they may be able to refer these issues, for example, to appropriate professionals. Second, we specifically will look at teachers to have the skills to navigate as a navigator or explorer of multiple distance learning modalities, with emphasis on the involvement of parents. So we want this as a shared responsibility, right, with the parents, not just the teachers but the parents. And third, I think this is our last point. No, it's important. We really emphasize, though this is a shared responsibility, teachers should be able to take control of their emotions and create measures and have the skills on how to take care of their mental health, or in general, their well-being. That's it for us. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Thank you, Chris. Next, I'm going to DPED regional offices.
Thank you so much, Sir Sakil. Good morning, Ma'am Amy and everyone. Yeah, I was tempted to say all of the above, because all of the discussions made by the other groups are also included in our answers. But to be more specific on how do we describe our future teacher, Sir Tito and I have this description of our future teacher as one which is a facilitator of learning that integrate the use of available technology in the classroom. So he must be also technology savvy, and must possess emotional intelligences, like he should be patient, to address the diverse needs of our students. He must be able to have tolerance, and must not be stressed always, dahil ang dami pong mga I'm talking in the vernacular. So aside from that, our teacher should also possess soft skills like complex problem-solving skills, and he must be flexible and adaptable, because the learning environment is constantly changing, and so therefore our teacher should be able to adapt to these changes. Our teacher should have a sort of Swiss knife approach. I mean, he must have a ready modality of teaching for our children, such that our children will learn in any given situation. So that's it. We have very limited discussion, because there are only 2 of us in the group. We will still be looking for our 3rd member. Thank you so much, Sir Sakil. Good morning.
Good morning. Thank you, Rhoda. Thank you so much. Excellent. I think I want to go back to one region that I think I missed. DAPED region 4B. Anybody from there want to represent? I don't think so. All right.
Sakil, we'll pick them up in the reflection on the next session, okay?
No problem. Yes.
So let me make a couple of comments. First of all, I love the Swiss Army knife concept. That's a really wonderful visual to think about. Oh, let's see, I have my toolkit for this situation. Which part of my Swiss Army knife can I pull out? I think also, I want to go straight at the last big question on the screen, because you've done a great job of kind of defining for yourselves what you see the future teacher needing to be. And so what does this suggest to us about our pre-service and in-service approaches? I want to go straight to pre-service, please. Comments, chat, or audio from the group. What does this suggest we must do differently in our pre-service preparation of incoming teachers?
Rosalina?
Yes, good morning, everyone. Rosalina from the Central Office. I believe that there should be a close, the PIs or the HEIs should have a close coordination with the department. What the HEIs should be teaching in their elementary education and of course the secondary education, who is the provider of our basic education, should include the demands of the basic education. Like what are the demands of the curriculum? What kind of learners are the basic education envisioning? Because they have to prepare our incoming teachers so that, you know, like when they come to the department, we don't even need to orient them on our curriculum and what the vision and mission of the department is. So there should be a strong collaboration of the HEIs who provide for the pre-service training, and of course the department. You know, like their curriculum of the HEI should be aligned with what the basic education or the department is wish to attain, so that the pre-service will be in relation or in accordance with the vision and mission of the department, since they are the provider of the basic needs of our para teachers or our students who wanted to become teachers. So a strong collaboration, a strong coordination, and a strong partnership is needed in general. Thank you so much.
I think that's an excellent kind of roundup, even of all of the comments that are coming on the chat. And I don't know about in Philippines, but I can tell you most of the rest of the places I've worked, pre-service is the last piece of change that happens. And I would suggest that if we're thinking about the future of education, pre-service needs to be a clear priority. To know that the teachers coming out of pre-service system and into the system for teaching are prepared for that future. So developing our vision of the future and then not waiting, you know, we've got to work with the people we have now, but I think also we have to really be proactive on getting to the teachers of the future to prepare them to be ready when they come out, because this drives on the in-service issue as well. You know, in-service should not be the primary modality for training teachers. And in many contexts, it currently is. We throw the content at in-service teachers after they come out of pre-service, relatively unprepared, even for the current situation, let alone for future situations. So I think that that's a critical piece for us to consider as you move forward as an organization to really prioritize that pre-service instruction. And Sakil, we've had some comments already on in-service as a part of people's responses. So I want to suggest at this point that we draw the first section to a close and we take our 10-minute break. So please take a look at your phones, your clocks, on your computer, your watch, whatever you're using to track time, and come back to us in 10 minutes for section 2, which focuses today on engagement of stakeholders.
Yes, thank you so much, everybody. I think in Philippines, it's also 9:35 a.m., if I'm correct. And then we are taking a 10-minute break. So just remember that you don't want to come back late, because then you will miss some great conversation. So take a quick break, coffee break, and whatever you need. And we are right here. Don't hang up, and see you in 10 minutes. Thank you. All right, welcome everybody. I think we are close to just 1 more minute left to restart. We have taken a 10-minute break. Hope everybody is back. And if not, I think rest of the team will be back very soon. So Amy, are you there? Can you hear me?
I am here. And Sakil, if you can push us to, there you go, section 2, slide 13, and go to full screen.
Yes.
Thank you. Thank you.
Yes.
So as we did in our last session, we're now going into section 2, which is about our prototype planning. And you'll see a pattern here. We spend more time in the training on section 1, new learning, and a little less time on section 2. And that's okay, because you've got your offline work that you're doing together, and you also will have follow-up after this with workshops directly going into phase 3. So next screen, Sakil. So just a reminder, this is our cumulative futures planning process that we will complete by the end of session 6. Last session, we worked on persona, focal concern, and goal. And this session, you can see with the blue highlight, we'll be working on identifying and codifying our stakeholders. So next screen. Where we are now is stakeholder mapping. And you'll remember last session, we talked about acknowledging our strengths and our need for support from colleagues with better knowledge. So I am now turning over stakeholder mapping to my colleague who has better knowledge and experience, and it goes to Sakil to take us through section 2. Thank you, Sakil.
Thank you so much, Amy. So this is a very interesting part, because I think in the previous conversation, when we were going through all the discussion, the future planning, we already started to talk about a lot of stakeholders. Now, before we talk about stakeholder mapping, we need to talk a little bit about who are the stakeholders. And interestingly enough, when we see the discussion happening, there is already so many stakeholders we have discussed in the last session. So, but the idea of a stakeholder is very important, because even when we start thinking about stakeholders in any context of work, we usually think about, it's a common tendency for all of us, is to think about the external stakeholders, because we saw a lot of conversation about the community, the schools, the other departments, or the civil society, organizations, universities. It seems to be all external. But I really would like us to focus in two different two-prong approach when we think about stakeholder mapping. I have not gone into mapping yet. Just thinking about who are the stakeholders. And it's interesting, because when we think about a stakeholder, I would like you to focus on two parts. You think about internal stakeholders and then also external stakeholders. Why? Because a lot of time, of course, when we talk about stakeholders, we think about that we cannot control the external stakeholders. Now, think about your own department. Think about where unit that you work. Think about the region that you work. There are any other stakeholders in the ministry, in the DPED, in other departments. These are all external to you. And it's also internal, in the sense you are part of one body in the Department of Ed. So we have to think about in a very kind of complex environment, because when we try to work with external stakeholders, also there is internal stakeholders that we need to work on, and they may be external to our unit, but they are internal to the Department of Ed. I don't know if I am confusing everybody by using the word external, internal at the same time. But I just want to make sure that we are cognizant of this issue, that there is always the externalities, but also there are internalities to our stakeholder discussion. And everybody in a cumulative way actually works together. for any kind of development work and implementation. So, and then the mapping exercise, we need to think about, who are these stakeholders, what are their roles, how they work, what they do. And the second part is the influence part, which is, can they help you leverage your work? Now, in this particular space, we got to talk about different ways. There is high versus low. What is that? When we influence, the influence can happen in a high level or a low level, meaning not the hierarchy, but high influence or low influence. So can they help you? Is there influence? Can you influence? Also, can they influence to your work, to leverage your work? And this is very important because there are 4 scenarios that we're going to talk about in just a minute. Also, stakes. What are the stakes for these individuals in the work you are trying to accomplish? And again, in this case, also high stake and low, high influence and low influence there, and high stake and low stake there. Is it very important for them? What is their priority and your priority? Because each department has their own priority. Each external stakeholder may have their own priorities. So how do they, what are their stakes in this particular work that you are trying to achieve? And then, for example, I like to take on maybe a couple of examples from our work. Amy, you also can add some here. I remember that when we work in different countries, we think about, for example, curriculum work. Now, curriculum is such a big task, and it has so many units that gets involved. But also we work with the school, we work with teachers, we even work with students in many cases, where we try to see which curriculum actually gonna be piloted and work. But curriculum change is a long process, complicated process, and there is huge stakeholder involvement in the curriculum change. So when we think about, influence and stake, who has the big stake in the curriculum change? Then the other example is also textbook. Now, if you change textbook, or you want to upgrade textbooks or materials, and not only textbook, but materials for the future of schools and future of education, then think about this, that what kind of stakeholders, a variety of stakeholders going to be involved. Of course, we think about ourselves, but there is a lot of other stakeholders. For example, the publishing industry, who does all the children's books and the supporting materials, and also the parents that are fully involved and who has different stakes in this process. Amy, do you want to add any example?
I was just going to say, on your curriculum example, the thing that struck me the most is teachers have the highest stakes in terms of curriculum, but they may also have the lowest influence. And so I think, for me, your conversation is leading me to the idea of high stakes and low influence, high influence and low stakes, and every other iteration. Right. So I think curriculum is a really great example, as well as textbook development, about how the influence and the stakes may not always match one another. So right. Just something that it brought to mind.
Right, thank you. And it's amazing because this permutation and combination, what we call it in math, this 4 kind of permutation combination would be actually, making a lot of influence also in our own future thinking. Because as you said, curriculum may be developed by a certain kind of stakeholders, but then teachers, if the teachers don't have influence, then they still have to implement that curriculum in the classroom. And the same way that if you have not any input or influence in developing new textbook for the future, then still there has to be teacher training on those new curriculum, new textbook, how to use them, teacher guide, and all of that. So these are complicated steps for us, and we need to think about both the influence and the stakes, because each of these need to be aligned, and each of these need to be really thought about as we think about the future of future processes. So I'm going to go into the next slide. You see a stakeholder mapping process template, and you see the influence, you also see the interest, for the stakes that you see in 4 rubric there and 4 buckets. So take a minute to kind of digest this graphic there. Now it's interesting because when we saw that high influence and low stake, why you need to handle with care. And then you see high influence and high stake. Of course, it is top priority because there is influence and also there is high stake for everybody. It gets priority. But that's the opposite matrix. You see low influence, low stake gets low priority. Is it, for example, pre-service? Something we always talk about, but many places we have not. Of course, I don't want to mention Philippines, but many countries that we see a lot of investment, lot of work on the pre-service reform did not happen for a long time. But we are investing a lot of resources and energy in the in-service. And of course, there is result. We all know this, and I'm going to be very blunt about this, that in-service provides quick fix. In-service provides quick numbers. It does also give you, showcase some quick recovery from the work. But then the source of the issue may be in some places pre-service education. So, but then if it is a low stake, low priority, then nobody is giving attention. Now, low influence and high stake, this is also another very interesting scenario because you might see you need help to participate. So Amy, I don't know if any of the areas you want to give any example.
Yeah, well, you've already given an example. Low influence and high stake. Generally, when we talk about curriculum and we talk about teachers, low influence, teachers tend to not have a lot of influence over the direction the curriculum is going, but they have the highest stakes of all because they have to deliver. So that for me is a core example. I think of other examples, but somehow, and it may just be my teaching, my classroom background, I continue to come up with teachers having relatively low influence over the things that are going to happen and the plans that are made, but always, almost always the highest stakes involved because they are the direct line to students. So I won't beat the drum too badly on the inclusion of teachers in all of this work. Go ahead.
Right. And it's interesting because, as you say, low influence, high stake, and it's also accountability issue. I think it's always somehow the finger gets pointed to the teacher because teacher is at the center of the work. And we think that it's only the accountability that, well, the frontline interaction for the learning outcome for these future learners is all teachers' responsibility. But then how does this multiple stakeholder, the variety of stakeholders that we have, ourselves and everybody around us, what are our influences and what are our own stake? And this is a big question. It's not one person's responsibility. And then also, I think we talked about agency earlier. Agency in the sense for everybody in your own space. What is your agency? What is your efficacy, self-efficacy for the work? So it's going to be quite exciting. I want to go into a little bit more discussion. We want to go to regional small groups again. But before I go there, I want to ask if there is any question or comments before we go into the group work. Anybody has any question, you can raise your hand or any comment on the chat box. All right, so Amaka, I don't know if you can hear me. We want to go into the chat. I see one person.
Do you want me to rename them now, Sakil?
Yes, if you can, but yeah, we don't want to waste too much time.
It'll only take me a second. I've already started.
All right.
So as that gets done, let me, Sakil, before you lay out the task, let me focus people pretty tightly. So we're talking about the futures planning process, yeah? So this issue of stakeholders, we've got the 4 quadrants we're going to work in, but we're really focusing that in on as we begin to move forward with futures planning, those stakeholders that should be engaged in futures planning, and then sorting those stakeholders into these groups. Sakil, back to you.
Thank you so much, Amy. Yeah, so I think the group task is pretty simple, but of course, going back to our own regional groups, and Emeka gonna be helping us with setting up the groups right now to go into small groups for your own regional groups and unit groups. But then using the template below, the template you have seen on the previous screen, and I'm gonna remind you what the previous screen was. This is the mapping process template for stakeholders: high influence, low stake, high influence, high stake, low influence, low stake, and low influence, high stake. It's all also there, and it will be on your main screen if you want to look at it. Using the template provided on previous screen, begin to brainstorm your stakeholders. Who are they? Making a simple list by working together, and refine your list into groups. Who are these people who has high influence, low stake, but high influence or high stake? This is very important as we think about this particular stakeholder mapping. We need to work with every single activity, every single component in our future of work. Because otherwise, if we give low priority, then that will actually also get low resources, and then also it's not going to be able to be implemented. So it's really interesting, because I always tell people that the influence and the stake has very direct connection with resourcing. And it's really interesting that the resource planning also has very high influence on the actual fidelity of implementation and how you get success through your work. So Emeka, if you are ready, yes, you can go ahead and break them out. Think about questions or concerns, and go into your groups, and we will give you exactly 15 minutes. And please come back and look at the final bullet points, make a decision about who will share the process, and please report back the same way that you have done before. So we will open the session now, and you can join your own groups, and we'll be back in 15 minutes. Emeka, you can also set up the timer if you can for 15 minutes.
Okay. I don't have, I'll set it up on my phone. I don't have on the screen.
All right, that's fine. You can okay. Close all rooms in 15 minutes.
When it's ready, okay.
Emeka, are they gone to the room now?
Yes.
Doing a little bit of reflection from your group discussion, and you see the screen. We would like to hear some examples of things that you come up with in your group discussion in each of the 4 stakeholder categories. So I just want to remind everybody the 4 categories. Here is your stakeholder mapping process template, and we want to use this template for the discussion. We want to hear some of the examples in each category. Who are these people that we want to influence, and who has the stake, and then which which approach you want to use to work with them and influence. So we want to hear, maybe I want to go to first DEPED NCR.
Yes, good morning.
Good morning.
Yes, this is Maria Pilar Capalongan from SDO Quezon City. Now, during the discussion in our group, it's very challenging for us. Of course, our neurons were working much on the topics that was given to us. Po. So regarding the examples on the process template that you gave us. So let us start with the handle with care. So according to the group sharing a while ago, The handle with care or high influence and low stake would be the parents, the partners or LGU and the local government unit and the partner industries. So because partners really play a vital role in the influence of in the educational system po. And then when we go to the top priority, we are tied with the learners and teachers, which are high influence and high stake. And then for the low priority, which is low influence and low stake, would be the non-government agencies or organizations. So with that, they would play the low influence and low stake.
You are breaking up a little bit. Can you hear me?
They are also part of
we cannot hear you.
The process in education and high stake. Yes, hello, sorry.
Yeah, you are breaking up a little bit. Hello? Now I can hear you. Yes, go ahead.
I'm back. Okay, thank you. So as I was saying, for the low influence and high, for the low influence and high stake parents and home. So still they are part of the stakeholders but they need to be prioritized because of the low influence and high stake. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much. Thank you. That's excellent. So I want to go to the next one, David Tanwan.
Morning po once again. Am I heard, sir?
Yes, you are fine. Can you come close to the microphone?
Okay, sir. So we have discussed something new again in our group. So we group our stakeholders into 4 according to what is presented earlier. So we have identified our stakeholders. It might be internal or external, providing that they are playing a very important role to the development of our learners here in Tanawan City. So for the first group, we have the business and the company, the business partners, the company and the private individuals. We group them into we tag them into a low stake and high influence, because sometimes they are giving us trainings and giving us something that is not really relevant, but they want to give us that to us because it is their corporate responsibility, but without really having an assessment on if we really need that kind of training. So for the next quadrant or next number 2, the teachers, the group of the teachers, DepEd, the school heads, they are the molders of learners, and we classify them into low influence and high stake. And for the next group, we have the community partners, the NGOs, the LGUs, and other organizations in the community. Okay, so we suggest that they should be at high stake, but with low influence. And for the 4th group, we have the government, which is the policy maker, and which has a high influence, but also has a high stake, because we really have the major support must be coming from the government. Now, who plays the major role for this particular scenario? So the teachers or the DepEd, the school heads particularly, the DepEd plays the major role in giving quality learning to the pupils. But we also need, and there is a need for the stake to have a combination of the force coming from the stakeholders. So how will this be happen? So we should work together. We should analyze what we need. We should assess and do the parts, particularly for each organization, to contribute for the leading of the schools to provide quality education for the learners, especially in this kind of situation that we are experiencing in our country. That's all. Thank you.
Thank you so much. That's great. That's a lot of different perspective. Thank you so much. I will go to the next one. Dep at Central Office.
Hi, good morning.
Samuel, how are you?
May you allow us to share a PowerPoint?
All right, I think I can. Of course, yes, Samuel, please. Can you? I did. I made you a co-host. Go ahead.
Yeah, thank you very much. So this is a group. Okay. Do you see my? Do you see our presentation?
It's coming.
It's coming.
All right. Go ahead. Yes.
All right. So here is what we did. So our group members had a collaboration through the slides, okay, of the Google, and we have these quadrants. First, just like in other groups, we classified our stakeholders as internal stakeholders and then external stakeholders. As you can see, there are abbreviations to the right of each item as ES, IS to mean those are external and internal stakeholders. So from the upper left, we see here the high influence, low stake like DBM, NEDA, other development partners, and legislators. So most of these are external stakeholders. And then below it, we have the low influence, low stake. We have identified here some groups, okay? So rebel groups, other government agencies, NGOs, religious sector. And then below the right portion of this slide, below it, we have the low influence, then high stake. We have the IS and then ES, like we have learners, teachers, non-teaching and related teaching, then parents, private schools, indigenous communities and minority groups like the learners with disabilities and even the LGBTQI++. And then to the right, the upper corner, we have the high influence, high stake. So the DepEd management, like Execom, Mancom, then academicians, language evaluation review, curriculum instruction bureaus and other service bureaus for, say example, learning resource development. Then we have the local government units, the National Book Development Board, publishers, and printers. So we were able to enumerate them in this manner, but we still have to classify them further after having analyzed individually. So we just need some more time to be able to put them well in these quadrants. So thank you to my group mates and thank you very much.
You can unshare. Thank you so much. I think one more group. Thank you, Samuel. That was really well detailed and very organized. I appreciate that. I will be most probably mispronouncing the last region. Tuge-Garao, the region.
Yes, so Sakil, good morning once again. Unlike the central office group, I do not have a PowerPoint. I do not have a slide to share, but I try to present our group discussion in a very clear manner. We, as suggested earlier, we had.
Oh, okay, Rhoda. I think central office you are presenting first.
Yeah, they presented already, right. Sir.
Yes. No. Go ahead.
Okay, I'll now proceed?
Yes, yes, please proceed. Continue.
Okay, so thank you. As instructed earlier, we had categorized our stakeholders into 4 quadrants. So for the left lower quadrant, which are our low influence and low stake and are therefore our low priority, this includes NGOs and other NGAs and private individuals. For the right quadrant or right lower quadrant, these are our stakeholders that don't have that have low influence and high stakes. We have our partner industries. Now, for the third quadrant, this includes our stakeholders that has high influence and low stake, and therefore we should handle them with care. This includes our local government officials, our politicians, oversight committees or agencies rather, other community and civic and religious groups. We have our alumni and the media. Now, for our for the last quadrant, which has high influence and high stake, and therefore our top priorities, we have our teachers and of course our educational leaders. That includes our principals, our supervisors, and other educational leaders in all levels of governance. Taking in consideration our focus before, during our first meeting, that the focus of the regional office is the improvement of the competencies of our students, specifically on English, science, and mathematics. And also we would like to improve our teachers' capacity in using the appropriate technology in the integration of technology in the pedagogy. So thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Rhoda.
Yeah,
Thank
with
you.
me are my group mates, Sir Teng and Sir Tito.
All right, great, excellent. Thank you. Thank you so much. I think I have one more region left, the last region, Depe Tuguragaru. Anyone from that region? Vilma, are you speaking?
Good morning po, sir. From
Yes.
Tugigaraw City po, sir. So we have the different quadrants, and then under the quadrants, high influence, low stake, we considered our non-government organizations in our community, and also we need to handle this with care. We consider it as high influence and low stake in the sense that they are needed in cascading the education, but we need to consider the low stake because they are playing as a second priority. And then we have under the second quadrant, which is the high influence, high stake, we have here in our notes are the learners and teachers. And we have also parents to support the learners, to support the needs of our learners. And we have also the local units who are very supportive in cascading the new normal in education. Our government, local government, community are the ones giving us some of our needs when we need it, especially in this time of new normal in education. And then we have also low influence, low stake. We considered in our notes that these are the non-government organizations. And in the low influence and high stake, we have in our notes that these are our PWDs, families living with below poverty lines, and also and also parents, and also families who belong to I finished already, who belong to marginalized line po, sir. So that's all for our group report for Tubigaw City. Thank you po.
Thank you so much. Thank you. Excellent. I think that covers all the themes of presentation. So I will be going back to my presentation here and share the screen. Thank you. Thank you so much.
Thank you, sir. Welcome, sir.
All right. So Amy, I don't know if everybody can see my screen. I'll try.
Yes, your screen can be seen. Can you now, Sakil, take us to the last screen, please? And I'll close us out for the morning.
Yes.
Okay, so I think that was a great exercise, and I know you've just gotten started. So let's take a look, first of all, here at your homework, yeah? You had 2 small group breakouts today. One where you were defining or describing the future teacher and identifying the new skills and understandings they need to have. We would like for you to work offline between now and Monday to complete that process and complete that description. And then also this futures planning around your stakeholder mapping. Many groups mentioned we need more time. Of course you do. We're just getting you started. So again, working offline to come up with, using your structure, your grid, your stakeholder map. And I want to add to this also as a reminder, your action plan, because while we're working long-term for futures planning, we also want you to have some good current takeaways that you can use in your work right now. And that's where the action plan comes into place. So completing your description of teachers, completing your stakeholder map, and then working in your action plan as well are your 3 homework assignments between now and Monday morning. We would also like you then to go onto the WhatsApp group and answer the first 2 questions here. What's something new and useful you're taking away today? This can drive into your action plan as well. So you might want to do that WhatsApp group reflection before you work your action plan response today. That will help you do that. And then, of course, any questions that you have about the content from today, or any worries or concerns about the session, the process, anything at all that you need us to know so we can be of more support to you. We encourage you to go to the LinkedIn group. If you want to access anything, it will be up there sometime soon. And now I'm going to just say thank you from me and from Sakil for your great participation this morning. And Suman, are you there? I'm going to turn them over to you for last bits of housekeeping and evaluation.
Yeah, Amy, Sakil, thank you so much. All the participants and Marisol and Amaka for stepping up as our tech support today. And thank you very much. And as usual, we will have the surprise of the day in a few seconds. Just hold on your breath. And I will share, we will send out the link, use the same link for the evaluation of today's session. I would like to see a little better participation. We had 84% participation in evaluation from the first day. Today, I hope we get 100%. And also, the video will be made available tomorrow. I hope you had the opportunity to glance through the video of the past 2 sessions. And if you have any question, send out an email to us or the text in the WhatsApp group. And all the articles and the books will be uploaded in the Google Drive so that you can download it. With that, I'll turn over to Sakil to give us a surprise for the day number 3. Sakil.
Thank you so much, Suman. And thank you, all of you, for extraordinary work today. And we are very, very appreciative for your participation. And I can imagine only that getting ready at 7 o'clock to be on the session at 7:30. Also, many of you, I can imagine you are in the field, you are working. I saw some of the background. You are not in your workplace in the perfect office scenario. You are doing your field job, and you have joined the session. We are very, very grateful to your commitment and dedication. I even see Florente, I think, going to the field right now on the car. Excellent, excellent live photo from traveling. So thank you. Just a quick cover. This book was provided to me without a cover from the publisher. So I will see if I can find later on a cover with a cover, but this is the book, Professional Development Through Teacher Research. This is also an excellent book that I came across, and I thought it would be good for you all. And this is a full-length book. The whole book is in PDF, published by Multilingual Matters, Bristol and Jackson. And this is also quite a 2022. This just came out, and maybe that's why publisher did not give me the cover of the book. So there are many essays, and this is a very interesting topic, professional development through teacher research. And as we know, not only research on teachers, but teachers also as researchers. So something for you is coming to your WhatsApp group a little bit later, also in your Google Drive. So I definitely download, and when you get a chance to read it, you are welcome. So thank you all. That's all for today, and hope you enjoy your days and weekend coming up. Suman will be in touch with further details with Maricel for the next session. The next session will be on STEM discussion, if I remember correctly. And you will have a wonderful, wonderful trainer and a facilitator who is very well known globally, Dr. Padu. I think many of you know him already. So we will be in touch with more detail very soon. Thank you, and have a wonderful, blessed day. Take care.
Thank you,
Bye-bye.
everyone. Bye-bye.
Thank you. Good night.